What's up, everybody? This is Mario, and I'm back with another episode of Endurify. And today, I want to talk about a big mistake that I made when starting off with podcasting. I want to talk about a few mistakes that I see people making that get in the way of them from, competing in endurance events. And I want to bring it back to you at the end. And so, when I first came up with the idea of starting a podcast, I remember it was actually a couple of years ago. It was 2 years ago, and I was actually just cleaning the house at the time. And I don't know, it was just one of those like epiphany type moments where I'm just like, oh, that's it. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a podcast. And so my original idea was to start a podcast where I interview a random person and then interview them about their life story, kind of who they are, what they've learned, and any life lessons that they've kind of accumulated over the years, and then have them introduce me to somebody else who has an interesting story as well. And I wasn't going to determine who I was going to interview. I was just going to start with one person and then have them introduce me to somebody else and just see, where that would take me. And my original idea was, oh, this could maybe take me to some really cool everyday people. It could take me to celebrities. It could take me to Olympians, could take me to CEOs. It could take me like who knows where it could take me. And I still actually think it's kind of a cool and kind of an exciting idea where it would just be this like chain of people. So, anyways, I came up with this idea and I got super excited about it. And one of the first things that I did is just like how to start a podcast. And then I started looking at what podcasting equipment do I need? And then I started looking at what's the best podcasting equipment for podcasters. And I spent I don't know, probably a couple $100 on a podcasting mic, a pop filter, some nice headphones, a stand, and I got all of this equipment. And then guess how many episodes I recorded that year? None. Okay. So I got super excited. And then one of the first things that I did was bought a bunch of gear and then I didn't take the necessary action. So I believe that was in like 2019 when I came up with that idea originally. So then when I kind of got re-inspired to actually commit to starting a podcast, I recognized what mistake I had made previously, where I just focused on the gear and I didn't actually take the action, and I did the opposite. So what I did is I found an app called Anchor, which is just an app that you can use on your phone, and I realized that it's something that I would, open up the app, I would click record, and once I saved it, it would automatically distribute it to, like, 7 different podcasting platforms. So, I focused more so on the action rather than the gear, and now that I've been doing that for, um like 270 episodes, I'm starting to get back into and I'm starting to actually use the gear that I had purchased in 2019. So I don't know if you can tell, but if you've been listening to it, listening to this podcast, this is actually an episode that's being recorded with my professional mic that I had bought 2 years ago that I'm just now starting to figure out how to use. And so this is just kind of a mistake that I've made in my personal life when starting off with this big goal and this big dream of starting a podcast. But I've also seen the same mistake get in the way of people from competing in endurance events. Okay. So when I tell people that I do triathlons, I start to ask people, like, hey, would you ever do a triathlon? And a lot of times people have this excuse or have this idea that, "Oh, I would," or I couldn't do a triathlon because I don't have a nice bike," or I can't do a triathlon because I don't have a nice race watch." And they're when they think about, like, becoming a triathlete or doing a triathlon, people immediately start to think about the gear. And that is the absolute wrong approach. And using gear as an excuse for taking an action or for not taking an action is definitely not the way that you want to go. And so uh, it's just something that it's kind of funny that I recognize that in my own life when it has not worked out. I've recognized it now in my life when it is working out with my personal projects, but I also see it with triathlons. And kind of the reason why I was prompted to do this podcast is because I interviewed one of my best friends, Joey, who just did his first half Ironman last weekend, and he mentioned, I think you should do an episode on gear and kind of the gear that you use because it was kind of eye opening because I don't really have like super nice, crazy gear. And so, uh, anybody who's listening to this who, does triathlons, if you were to look at my bike, you would notice I just have a regular road bike and I have some clip on aero bars. I don't have a fancy triathlon bike. I don't have, uh, you know, super fancy triathlon gear. I've just got a road bike with some clip-on aero bars, and it gets the job done. So that's some of the gear that I use. Another thing that I that was kind of eye-opening last race that I did, the last 70.3, is I didn't even have a triathlon sports watch because my Garmin sports watch had kind of died on me. So I did the race just using my Apple Watch. And in mile 45 of the bike ride, my Apple Watch died. So I didn't even have a race watch for the run, which is typically when people use their race watch the most to actually rely on their paces and make sure that their heart rate's at a good spot, and to look at different data and different metrics there. But I didn't really use that as an excuse because I know it's not really about the gear. It's more so about taking the action. And so, just to kind of recap, I think a lot of people, when you think about a big challenge like an endurance event, like starting a podcast, like starting a business, whatever your dream is, don't use not having the gear as an excuse because that's not at all where you need to focus initially. Where you need to focus initially is on thinking about what do you want to accomplish? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And then thinking, what is the smallest step or what is an action that you can take to get you one step closer to that? And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be buying a piece of gear. It's going to be showing up. It's going to be recording that first episode. It's going to be going for that first run, going for that first bike ride, going for that first swim. It's all about taking that first step and that first action. So that's the first thing. And then, not using it as an excuse and then just not focusing so much on the gear that it gets in the way of taking the necessary action. I just really want to drive that home because it's just something that I've seen so much in podcasting and triathlons, and I really believe that it's something that if you look at if you look at your own life, I'm guessing you've probably made this mistake as well. Now, one little caveat there is, like I kind of talked about, is initially you shouldn't focus on the gear. Start taking the necessary actions, develop the habits, but once you have developed the habit, once you're taking those actions, that's when you want to look at making sure that you have the necessary gear that's going to set you up for success or help you get to that next level. So that's what I'm doing with the podcasting gear. I'm starting to test that out. I'm also not letting that get in the way of taking the action, and it's just something that is top of mind for me. And so as I bring it back to you, I want you to again think about what's like a goal or an area that you're focused on that you're trying to improve on. And I want you to think about what is that first kind of small action that you need to take to get one step closer to your goal. And spend some time and actually think about this, write it down, and then give yourself a deadline of taking that first action towards it. All right. And if you're the type of person that just needs a little bit of accountability, a little bit of a nudge, a little help, then that's where I can come in. Because I can be your coach. I can help with endurance. I can help with mindset. I can help with defining a vision of where you want to go, creating a plan to go after it, and providing that accountability to help you take those actions. So that's where a coach can really come in and help you kind of take that correct action. And so, if that's something that you're interested in, I would love to work with you. And so just go ahead and reach out to me, mario@endurify.co, or just send me a text, 608-770-3437, and let me know that you're interested in coaching. But that is what I have for today. I hope that helps, and I'll talk to y'all later.